Hey, everybody. This is the Making Awesome podcast with 3D Musketeers. I'm Tad. This is Grant. Grant, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. We're on episode 5. Things are getting a little interesting here. We're going to be talking about the benefits of 3D printing. But before we get too deep into it, you might hear what sounds like a whining dog in the background. And I promise you, it's not a cat person because she leaves me alone. Uh, but it is our Lulzbot Taz 6 making a big part for a customer. It is one of the loudest printers in the fleet, and there's not much I can do about it. So if you are audio only, I apologize for the poor audio. Maybe I'll just have to get right up on this microphone, or
just,
not.
just to drown it out with your
Just to drown it out.
those
But
pipes.
no, hey. But this is episode number 5. Crazy that we've gotten this many, which doesn't sound like a ton, but we're not Joe Rogan or anything, so we're not going to hit the thousands yet. Anyways, Tad, take it away. We're going to talk about the benefits of 3D printing.
All right. Well, there's lots of aspects that we can cover with this, right? Probably the main sort of dichotomy with 3D printing versus other manufacturing methods is when is it right to go for 3D printing versus something else? Probably a good place to start with that is like the amount of whatever you want to make. 3D printing is good for prototyping because the materials are cheap, the machines are relatively cheap. What you pay for really is the expertise of the people who run them and the design work for whatever it is that you're prototyping. That's where the big costs come in. But for prototyping, you get rapid results, relatively speaking. It's not like quite as quick as machining CNC mill. It's much cheaper. Yeah, you're
More
not paying
affordable, we should say. Cheaper is not the
yeah,
right term, as business schools taught me way too many times.
cheap is not. Yeah. um, yeah. So there's that. Like, if you want 10,000 of something, you probably want it injection
Oh, yeah.
molded or die stamped or something, depending on what it is.
Talk about your experience as an engineer, because you've
Sure.
worked with 3D printing well before you worked with 3D Musketeers. So when would you be utilizing 3D printing, and how did that modify the workflow to before previous when you didn't have access to the technology? What do the workflows look like?
Previously, before we had 3D printed parts, I did a couple of design projects that, we did everything else. We would machine things on a manual vertical mill. We would resin cast stuff by hand. Uh, hell, we made some stuff with Bondo, and I think I lost a good amount of brain cells when we were doing that. That was not fun. Oh, that's an awful smell. So we would rapidly uh, kind of jury rig stuff to prototype, and then when we had access in our 3D printing lab to 3D printers, finally, I think this was like my sophomore year. Um, it was great because then we could just do the parts in CAD, no manual milling or any of that stuff, because you could mess things up pretty badly that way if you're not good at it. Just do it in CAD, spit out a part. They weren't very good, but they were better than other things. Um, and the iterative nature of it is where you really see the benefit, because you can, at like 10 hours, maybe, depending on how long it or how big the part is, you get the part and you're like, oh, this is no good at all. And then you go back, change a couple of things in CAD, start again. Whereas if you were getting something more traditionally manufactured, the turnaround time is probably much bigger, and you also spent a lot more money on that one iteration. So it's like, do we really want to go with another one? It used to be that products you would buy might have 1 or 2 rounds of prototyping before they go with the final thing, and if something goes wrong with it, that's on the company. They got to eat that cost of getting it fixed and ordering a whole new run, and who knows what they're going to do with that inventory. But now you can 3D print as many times as you want, basically, and get it perfect.
Oh, and that's a big deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
We work with a company here locally in Tampa that does things I can't talk about. But one of the things they found is crazily useful is that their clients are incredibly impatient. It's why I'm not going to name them, because I'm kind of bad-mouthing their customers, but it's secondhand bad-mouthing. Okay, I'm just repeating what they're telling me. This industry would require tons of prototypes, and previous to utilizing 3D printing, this company was going to their factory in China. They were having a mold cut and shot so that you could get a prototype. And if their client didn't like it, they just wasted multiple weeks, tens of thousands of dollars on a good time. I mean, some of these
even on
molds,
a draft mold, that's still expensive.
oh yeah, on just an aluminum mold, maybe they'll get it for $5,000. It's still $5,000 every single time. With 3D printing, we're normally able to do turnarounds in a week or less for them, especially if their designs are a little easier. And it's a couple $100, right? I think the most expensive thing we've done for them was a little over $1,000, and that was because we had a 17-hour turnaround. That was a required 17-hour turnaround with a full reverse engineer part. Okay, so you got to pay to have something done that quickly, right? We basically had to tell all of our other customers, hey, we've got an emergency part. We're going to add a day to, whatever turnaround times we had told you.
Yeah.
And that kind of turnaround is important for this industry, right? Because if their client can get this product out before a competitor comes out with a variant of it,
it's going to be a lot of money for them.
Right. It's first to market. It doesn't matter if you have the best one. It's who came up with the idea first. That's what the market generally cares about. And 3D printing has been huge for them because they're able to shorten their lead times. And I talked with the owner ad nauseum about this, and he never once talks about the money. He does not care. Now, don't get me wrong. He cares about money. But I have a feeling we could charge considerably more. And it's because we're doing it incredibly fast. That's where it becomes a profitable business for him. Because, not only are we doing it affordably, but now he can turn around 3 prototypes in a week if he's really pushing. And he can get the sales process done faster. These clients are closing $1 million to $2 million each every time they do a sale with this company. So it behooves them to try to clean this sales process as quickly and efficiently as possible, right? We've seen sales cycles go from 2 years down to 6 months.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, if you're a sales guy and you are a commission-based sales guy,
the faster you can get them.
You are, you're in love with 3D printing. 3D printing is, your version of the perfect person to wake up next to,
Yeah.
I guess that has a lot to do with this business, 3D printing. Hi, better 3/4. But realistically, there are so many benefits out there, and it goes beyond just business, right? Inventors to iteratively design. We are working with an inventor right now that filed and was granted a full-on utility patent. Right? You're in $5,000 before you cross this threshold. No problem. And he did it for a product that he never had made. And so when we got this product in our lap to say, hey, can you produce this? We looked at the patent and said, no, okay, we didn't say no. We said not cheaply. Not cheaply. That was the big thing had to do with how expensive it was. So
no
we had
optimization had happened.
None. They were using any which way arms, which are similar to like the mounts for like a gorilla pod, like lock line style, but it can't hold 10 pounds 3 feet away. You can't. They They do exist. McMaster-Carr sells them, but nobody had the budget for this. I mean, you were looking at each of these arms is going to run $300+. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
When there are considerably better solutions like gas spring monitor mount arms out there that are $50 or less for a pair.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't actually know what's going to happen with this guy's patent. It's not technically our job, right? They paid us to make a product that can be manufactured, not a product that fits their patent. Because initially we were paid to make a product that fit their patent, and we said we can't do it. You designed something in your head without making sure that you could do it in person, and that's a huge mistake. In
sort of the cart before the horse.
Absolutely. I was that probably sums up like the 20 minutes of me rambling. But yes, this guy did the patent well before he had the product. And look, we don't care.
Yeah,
file
that's
your
not
provision.
on our end.
In Florida, now each state is different, but Florida is a first to file state. Get your provisional. It is $225 or less to get your provisional patent. The USPTO does not look at them. It's the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, USPTO. They do not look at it unless there is a litigious reason to do so. So if you are in a court case where somebody stole your idea and you had a provisional on it, now the USPTO will go through, search the records, and they're going to see when you filed and when they filed. And if you filed first, you have a case.
You win.
If they filed first, you wasted $225. And the other problem with going full-on patent without having a product, patents are public record. I can go on Google and search this individual's name and find their patent.
So if you go too early, you're basically showing them your hand.
Right. You're playing high stakes poker against some of the biggest high rollers in the market. You're all in, and they still have millions of dollars. And that's standard for most, first time inventors, where you can't fight these big companies. You can't do it. They will
even
litigate
if you're right.
you into the, it doesn't matter. Unfortunately, the patent system is broken in that way. They don't care if you're right. They care who can prove it in court.
And that comes down to money.
Yep. This is an issue that happened with Whammo Bunch of Balloons. If you want to take a look at that, I'm not going to get into the details of it, but TLDR, $41 million the gentleman spent to prove that he was right. And the judge did not force the copycat to stop manufacturing. And so that man spent $41 million effectively for nothing.
That's $41 million he could have spent on his product just to keep going.
Yep. Now, I think it was
at that
41.
point,
It might have been
matter.
4. It might have been 4.1. I remember a 4 and a 1. 41 sounds better than 4.1.
Multiple millions of dollars.
But let's be frank. Both of that is an egregious amount of money. $4.1 million will buy 3D Musketeers. I will hand it off to you, client list. I'll walk with $4.1 million. Take it. Don't care. Take it.
Yeah.
Put me under a non-compete. Done. Won't have to work another day of my life, and I'll make sure all the team is taken care of too. But the 3D printing can save these kinds of issues. Now, it's not going to save a big company from ripping you off, but it's going to save you from filing a patent that could viably be a complete waste of time.
Right, because this way you could get your product sort of sketched out in a physical sense, and you can iterate on it, get it to where you want it, and then file your patent, because then you're ready. You're basically, one step away from going to market.
Great example. We have here a fan duct. This is a fan duct for one of our printers. I'm not going to tell you which one because it is part of a R&D thing that we're doing that we will eventually work with the company to license. We had over 20 prototypes before we found one that we're happy with, and it's still not perfect. It works, but it's not perfect. And 3D printing allows us to very quickly iterate. Now, it's a 3D printed part for a 3D printer, so you know, self-fulfilling prophecy. But
Mm-hmm.
it solves a major deficit that this machine had. It had a cooling fan. It only just cooled from one side, and that was kind of annoying. You know, so we did it ourselves, right? We reverse engineered things where we needed to and utilized open source CAD where we could, right? The hot
Mm-hmm.
ends are all open source, so we're able to pull in models from the
Drop
internet
that in.
and to design around it. But that kind of thing is what saves us thousands of dollars. We could go and get it milled out of aluminum. Ultimately, that is the goal. The goal is to mill it either out of like a FR4 Garolite or aluminum, because outside of like polycarb or nylon, all the plastics that we've tried droop over time. They get too hot.
Creep.
Yep. Yep. Ooh, excuse me. But it's been very beneficial to us.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, we're not alone here. 3D printing is something that's been around since 1984, commercially available since 2008. And companies all over the world utilize this technology to assist them in their systems. So, in a previous company that you worked for, you guys used 3D printing often to verify size, fits, and dimensions. Talk about that a little bit, or maybe talk about some experiences in school
Sure.
when you used it and how that modified your process. And I want to know, like, when you first started using 3D printing, were there apprehensions and all that too? I'm curious to hear about that journey. And I think our listeners and watchers might be interested too, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
they need to get to know us too. We're on episode 5, and neither of us have done a, you know,
This is my story.
yeah,
Yeah.
our story. Maybe we should do an hour story. Maybe we'll do it as a an audio only bonus episode, because we have one of those coming out. Maybe we figured it out yet.
Well, so like we went into this very slightly in my in the cost of 3D printing episode that we did.
Yeah.
So when I started college, I was living in Colorado, my home state. And there, like the second year I was there, we got a 3D printing lab in the basement, you know, and it was early days then. It was like you said, they had those Garolite FR4 boards as a heat bed. Well, I don't even know if it was heated, where the it had holes in it, and you just hope that your first layer kind of drooped into it and adhered that way. And it often failed on the first layer. So 3D printing for us then was kind of intimidating. It took a little bit of it took a little while to get like sort of used to using it in projects, because not only did you have to, you know, learn how to put the parts into the printer, um, which was new, you know, exporting STLs out of SolidWorks or what have you.
Yeah, you're used to
You know,
STEP or SLD part file.
yeah, I think I was using Creo then, so
Oh
it,
God,
it was a bit
I
of a mess.
forget that you were a masochist at one point.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, it is so finicky.
Yeah.
But beyond that, you know, and then you had to also sort of baby the printer and tweak things because they didn't level themselves or anything. It was you had to move little screws on springs under the bed.
Oh, the
It was a
worst.
pain. Um, so you had to kind of sit there and baby it because it often would not fail. I mean, it often wouldn't succeed until maybe the third attempt. But what what I really liked about it was we didn't necessarily have to go and or design two off-the-shelf parts. We could design something that was purpose-built for what we needed for a given project. Like I remember, like I think the first 3D printed parts I used not just for like fun stuff. Like the first year that I was doing it, I did a bunch of Christmas ornaments for my family. That was a fun thing. But the first project that I used it on was like a it was like a marble maze on an acrylic piece
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
that you started the marble in one corner with a button. It would drop it in, and then your objective was to use. We had like little actuators in each corner that tipped it in different directions. You had a joystick. You were trying to get it to a hole in the center, which would trigger a little sensor, and I think we had it play like the Star Wars theme or something. as
She did.
the winnings thing, because we could I think we shoved it on an SD card into like a little sound module, and that was our thing. Um, it was very, very basic, but we 3D printed the corner brackets that held the actuators because we didn't have anything that really we could attach those to. So we're like, well, let's just design it. Let's
You
way
look
better
at
than going to the hardware store.
and you look at some of these parts, right? This is a part that you have to make in two pieces.
Yeah.
There's no way. You have to make it in two pieces, then bond it together. There's quite a few things in 3D printing that cannot be made with traditional means of manufacturing. And that's a big deal, right? Because it
Yeah.
allows engineering companies, it allows architecture firms, aerospace to do things previously thought to be impossible, right? Koenigsegg is famous for this. They 3D print the exhausts to their vehicles out of titanium. Now, Koenigsegg makes extremely high-end, some of the fastest bad cars in the world. Bad being good, not
Yeah.
Christian
That sense
von.
of bad.
Christian von Koenigsegg is a visionary in the hypercar industry. We're outside of supercars. These cars are incredibly fast. They're absolutely gorgeous. And they're famous for this. They're famous for 3D printing parts where they can because they make so few cars. Like they're a production for them is like 20 cars.
Yeah.
It
So for low run,
doesn't
it makes
pay.
sense.
Right. And yeah, sure, that titanium 3D printer is going to run you $800,000 to $1.4 million. But when you're selling the car for $3 million, you don't care
No.
because everything now becomes bespoke.
Well, and another example of that is I think is it SpaceX that 3D prints their bell nozzles out of Inconel. It's because they use some kind of support structure that you couldn't machine or mold. So 3D printing is the only way to do it. And in that case, again, it's a low run situation. So it makes more sense to do it that way because there's no mass production to mass produce.
Yep. I mean, Ford has been 3D printing intakes on their vehicles for years, not in production, but when they're doing their prototyping, right? They want to make sure the intakes function. They can have certain little holes for measurement devices that won't show up on the final part. So they only have to cut a mold once, right? Garrett makes turbochargers. Actually, I believe they just filed for bankruptcy protection. COVID hurt them. But they were famous for 3D printing their turbine wheels on their turbochargers when they were doing production. They would 3D print them, and then if it was needed to balance it, they would then post mill. So they would actually 3D print it a little bit large and then post mill it because it took care of 95% of the effort, right? Because milling something out of steel, titanium, even aluminum, that has got all these intricate curves where you need to use a 5-axis machine is very slow. It is very intricate. And one
expensive.
little, oh God, it's expensive. And even if you do it in house, machines from DMG Mori, Haas, Doosan, trying to think of some of the others, Herco, pick your poison for CNC companies out there. Oh, I have to say Eurotech, they're local here. They're up in the Brooksville area. The machines are ungodly expensive. And they're beautiful. Anyone that, if you get the opportunity to see a flying 5 or a trunnion style 5 where it's got a rotary and then a swivel plate on it, so it's actually a 3-axis. It's a 3+2 the way I look at it, but it enables simultaneous 5-axis where it's so cool to watch like Kuka. To watch like Kuka arms do this where they're like, oh, it's gorgeous. 6 Degrees of Freedom is absolutely amazing to watch. And, people have put 3D printer attachments on Haas CNC machines. They put them on Kuka robots. And they do this because a lot of these companies have already spent the millions of dollars on the machinery. All they need is a $200,000 upgrade that now takes their previous subtractive only machine and turns it into an additive or subtractive. And that's a big deal, especially on a machine that's like end of life. You're not using it a ton anymore because, maybe 4-axis is just not, what you need, or maybe it's a little too small. It is perfect candidate for a 3D printer upgrade. And that's what a lot of people did back in the day, man. If you had access to a gantry system, you generally use that. You put an extruder on it, all of a sudden you got yourself a pretty terrible 3D printer, but it was something.
Yeah.
And the benefits go beyond this, right? They're great for even home stuff. I mean, I was at a student's house. I'm also a teacher. I explained this in the last episode. If you missed it, go take a listen or a watch. We talked about the cost of 3D printing. But I was over at this gentleman's house. He's 15 years old. He's in high school. To help him with his really cool E3D tool changer 3D printer. And he had tons of Lego. He had the biggest Lego ever made, the Millennium Falcon. And it was freaking huge. It had to have been 4.5 feet long. That thing was
It's enormous.
It is. I don't know what they cost, but I imagine they're
it's extremely expensive.
And one of my father's former bosses was huge into Lego, had a whole room in his home dedicated to Lego. The ability to 3D print custom parts like Lego is amazing, right? And if you are a hobbyist, model train guys go crazy for 3D printing. I just wish a lot of them understood it.
As we learned the hard way that one time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right.
That's
I
how
was
we
a
met.
model train guy. How you met? I'm an amateur horologist. No, that is not the study of women. Get that out of your mind. There is no W in horology. It is a clockmaker. Some of my oldest clocks are well over 100 years old and hold within 30 seconds a week, which is pretty cool. They're fully mechanical. I'll have to show one on stream one day.
Absolutely should.
But we had a grandfather clock come in, so I moonlighted at this clock shop locally. It's like a second family to me. We had a grandfather clock come in, and grandfather clocks generally have a knob on them to adjust what song you want to hear. So they either have large reed style chimes, not the big bell chimes. They have smaller bell chimes. Those are called sonora movements. And then there were ones that had like spring style gongs. But you could adjust how these hammers interacted to play different tunes. The most common one is the Westminster, the ding, 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 ding. It's a Westminster. But some people don't like that. And these clocks have camming systems to adjust it. Well, that camming system is historically made out of plastic because it is something that is a wear item. Like old grandfathers used wood because they wood clocks will last centuries before they need service. It's really cool. Because of how wood-on-wood contact, it'll work harden and basically become a bearing surface. But this particular grandfather clock was made in the mid to late 70s, and the plastic part for it to adjust, what style of chime you wanted was in 3 pieces, and normally they would glue it back together. We tried that. We assembled the clock, and it broke again. This part was made of nylon. Now, I don't know if we had injection molding of nylon in the 70s. I don't keep up with that kind of history. If we didn't, then somebody else worked on the clock. It's common that these clocks come in, potentially the same shop worked on it. They've been around for, well over 4 decades. So, they've seen some things, and, the owner he had just gotten a block of wood out because he was going to carve one by hand. His name is Dave. David Boyd of Boyd Clocks. I'm going to shout him out.
Yeah, why not?
Why not? Hook him up. But great guy, really cool guy, amazing story, and just a wealth of knowledge on a very particular subject. he was about to spend, 45, 50 minutes as a business owner, someone whose time is so incredibly taken up that he has 2 different planners. He has 2 different cell phones, and he buys really cheap cars, does bare maintenance on them, and when they die, he leaves them, calls a scrapper, and just buys another $1,000 van, because the amount of time that it takes him to get normal maintenance, like tires, like brakes. I mean, brakes will last a long time, people. Okay, he's not driving a death trap. Windshield wipers, air conditioning. He doesn't need that to do his job. He needs time. Yes, the time puns are abundant here. But I said, Dave, let me 3D print this for you. So took it home, reverse engineer. It took me about 20 minutes. And again, I'm not an engineer. So it took me probably 15 minutes longer than an engineer would take. But I got it right on the first try. So I made a dozen of them and I brought them in. Fit like a glove. And he said, man, that's crazy. I've never really understood 3D printing, and to see how it can help this industry. This is the kind of technology that keeps this industry alive, because a lot of these parts you can't get anymore. And unless you're going to use period correct machinery, which they had, right? They have the machinery to do all this. But unless you use period correct machinery or you're using expensive CNC equipment, 3D printing is really one of the only options.
Yeah.
Unless you're going to spend the time to do it yourself. And that was a huge revelation for him. He knew that I was in business.
Yeah.
He knew that I had a 3D printing business, but it had never come up, right?
Well, and the fact that he was prepared to just sit there and carve it himself, you saved him so much time.
Yeah, and yes, the astute among us will say, well, he would have had it that same day. Well, it didn't matter. The customer wasn't coming that day.
Yeah.
He had time to do it. And instead, he was able to work on a different clock while I worked on this grandfather clock. I'm sure I have photos of it somewhere. If I do, and there's nothing in there that I can't share, we'll be sure to put them in the description of the podcast and on YouTube, so you guys can check out the photos. And likely I can probably share the Fusion 360 model. We can do that. At least we can link to it. And that's just one of those times where I was not into clock making. And actually, here, I'll show you guys. I still have, and it's attached to my computer, the ticket to my first clock. Does it look right to you? Because to me, it looks backwards. Can you read it?
I can read it.
Okay, so it says Grant Posner correctly over. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not flipped.
Okay, good. This is the ticket to my first clock. It's a Hershey Tambour mantle clock. I'm not going to bore everybody with clock talk today, but that clock...
that'll be its own episode.
We traced it back to 1919, and for all you woodworkers out there, the case is solid mahogany. I found it at our local Goodwill. I paid $4 for it. And it's one of my favorite clocks. But, that was an instance where I was not there to sell 3D printing. I was there because I liked clocks. And I'm a dancer, not Chippendales, even though they all make fun of me that I'm a Chippendale dancer. I am definitely not in the right shape for that. I do a lot of jazz and swing dancing, or used to. I haven't danced since January. We're filming this in late September. Of course, COVID. And in April, I herniated 2 discs in my back. So COVID has given me a great excuse to be lazy. If I'm not going to blame it on the back. But, I brought in this clock to the shop because they're the only one in the area. And a guy pokes his head out and says, I know you from somewhere. I said, and do you know anything about 3D printing? He said, nope. No. He said, I'm going to ask you a really awkward question. And if you don't want to respond, you don't have to. But are you a dancer? And I said, yeah. Well, why?
Yeah.
So you dance in the torpedo room, right? I'm like, yes, I do. He's like, that's where I know you from. He's like, dude, you're going to fit right in. Come on back. And it even says on the ticket, going to rebuild himself. So the deal that we have there is for every 2 clocks that I fix for their customers, I can use their tools and knowledge to fix one of mine. I think that's a very fair thing, right? It helps them stay in business. There's no exchange of money, so there's no taxes, there's no BS, right? It's a little quid pro quo, the good kind, of course, right? And I found a second home when times were tough here, and I'm rambling a little bit, but I'm just trying to establish something here. When times were tough at 3D Musketeers and we had a really hard time paying bills, I went to the owner of the clock shop and said, hey, look, it's really tough in the business. He said, say no more, $15 an hour, let me know how much I owe you. That was it. No questions asked. And he said, when everything's good, if you want to keep submitting timesheets, I'll keep paying them. But if you want to go back to volunteering, that's fine. You have the opportunity to switch back and forth as often as you need. We are a family here, and we take care of our own. And that's important because
it's priceless.
I, of course, go out of my way to talk about 3D printing when I can because, well, it's a business.
Right.
I never thought of this place as a way to hawk my services. This was just it's therapy for me, right?
Yeah.
It's engineering pornography.
Cathartic.
If you've ever looked at a mechanical clock, they're incredible. I don't have any movements that I can show you because I don't know when I can get down there. So sometimes I would bring movements home and do all the stuff here. But I don't, because I don't know when I can get them back, and I don't want their customers to have to wait.
Yeah.
So, but when we made that connection, he's like, dude, I've got room in the back of our facility. If you want to move some printers here, said the only deal is you got to train us how to use them. And when you're not utilizing them, we can use them for work stuff or stupid stuff. Everyone's a kid on the inside at the end of the day. And we were looking at making that move and moving into Hillsborough County out of Pasco, and basically opening up a secondary location so I could get some of these printers off a rack, regain this this area of the facility. And then some things in my life changed. I accepted a full-time job. We're not going to get into that right now, but I know that offer is always on the table. And anytime that I can get down there, it's a little tough right now for the drive, I always go and visit them. And Dave always talks about that 3D printed part. He also always shows me the tourbillon that I made for him. A tourbillon, it's a gyroscope clicking clock movement. You go online, look up tourbillon, TOURBILLON.
That sounds right.
Google. Hey, I got it right on the first try. It's a skeletonized watch movement, basically. And I 3D printed him one. And it doesn't work all that well, but he spent, and I know he did it like at night when the shop was closed, he got it running, and it runs really well now. And he loves it. It's fascinating to him because it's technology that he's never had access to. That's the kind of benefit for 3D printing. And it's not intrinsic, right? It didn't save them millions of dollars, but that's a man that never looked at this kind of technology until someone said, hey, you should try this. And he said, What the hell? I'll give it a shot. I've got other work I can be doing. And if you are a business, if you are a person, if you are a lizard person, we don't discriminate really. And you haven't utilized 3D printing in your life, we've got one question for you. Why? Why? Why?
Why not?
There's a whole meme. Why? Why? I'll find it. I'll put it in the description. I gotta type
seriously,
why meme.
Why wait? The world is your oyster, basically.
It is.
And you just gotta dip your toe in it.
This technology is freaking cool. As someone that is quite literally around it, there all the time. I'm jaded to it. But behind me is a machine that I programmed to make a part for an inventor that does not exist. That's freaking cool. This gentleman that had a pipe dream, that spent a ton of money to get it patented, is now able to put it in his hands and say, this is good, this is bad, change this, leave this. That is freaking cool.
And that's the beauty of it. You could take an idea off of a napkin and turn it into a fully fledged physical thing in your hands.
You can.
And
I hate to say that the possibilities are endless because it's cliche, it's stupid, and it's hyperbolic. But it's actually true, right? There are very few limitations. The biggest limitation in 3D printing is your budget. We can make you literally anything. If you give us a, what is it, the American Express black card that has no limit, or a blank check with a, $1 million account, we can make you literally anything. This technology opens up doors that were previously closed, and it does it through means that are unheard of to the general public. That's one of the reasons we're doing this podcast, is to get this technology out there. We want you, the listener, the watcher, the person that's like, why the hell am I still listening to these people? To understand this technology is really cool. So here's what I'm going to do. We're going to give away consultations. I want anyone that's been thinking about getting into 3D printing to call us, email us. You can go to makingawesomepodcast.com, or you can go to the actual, or 3dmpodcast.com. You can go to 3dmusketeers.com/podcast. They all go to the same place. Spoiler alert, because, that kind of thing works. And we're going to have some memes that we're going to start playing around with. Linus, watch your back. We believe that every single person can benefit from this technology. And it could be in a dumb little way. Maybe there's a part to your car that's broken. I drive an 18-year-old car. The parts break on the damn thing daily. Why would I go to the dealer? I mean, if anything, I'd go to the junkyard and find a junked car and take a part from it. But what's its lifespan going to be? I can 3D print my own replacement. And sure, I could likely get it from Amazon. Great example, the brake switch depressor pad on my brake pedal disintegrated. So my brake lights never turned off. Kind of a problem.
A little bit.
If you don't have a battery charger. Because if you don't know, even when your key is out of the ignition, you press on the brake pedal, your brake lights turn on. So my car always thought the brake lights were on. I had no idea.
Until it wouldn't turn on anymore.
Actually, someone said, hey, your brake lights are always on. I'm like, what? Like, yeah, your brake lights are always on. So I pull over, I look, I'm like, yes, they are. The part
you're not in the car and they're still on.
I didn't know. It's not something I checked for. It must have happened when I was driving. Well, the part's $5 from Amazon, but that's a 2-day wait. Your taillights will melt in 2 days. Now, I was actually going dancing at the time when I found this out. So when I got to where I was going, I pulled the battery terminal, right? Because I'm not going to let the battery die, which of course means all your radio stations reset. That's the worst part. And the clock resets. The worst part. But, and I have to, it's a Honda, so it has a anti-theft system. If the battery gets disconnected, you have to put in a code for the radio to unlock the radio.
Oh.
And it's attached to the VIN number of the car. I didn't know any of this until I couldn't get the radio
the last
back
4
on.
or something?
No, it's a special code. They have a decoding system on their website where there's a code in the glove box plus your VIN number, and it will tell you the code. So unless you have full access to the vehicle, you can't. The idea is if you steal the radio,
it's useless to you.
It's a double-din radio. It's useless unless you took down this information and can decode it.
Or stole the whole car.
That too, but it's an 18-year-old car. No one wants an 18-year-old car. Come on.
Yeah.
Thieves, this Honda might be worth $2,000. maybe. If someone wants to offer me $2,000, I would probably consider it. I do love that car. That was my first car. It's a great car to drive. But I was able to come home, design it, because I saw the part. I know how big it's supposed to be. I took some measurements from the car, and I left the battery terminal on. I said, come hell or high water, the battery is going to die, or I'm going to fix it. 41 minutes later, I had a replacement part.
No Amazon, no 2-day wait.
No Amazon, no nothing.
Probably spent 10 cents of materials.
Oh yeah, and I spent like 30 minutes trying to figure out how to design it because I'm not good. And I even made it out of flex, and I made it acid green because I can. And it's still there to this day. It's just one of those things where I did that because it's accessible to me. It's easy. It wasn't difficult. Super easy.
It's one more option in your toolbox.
It was super easy, barely an inconvenience. If you get that reference, let us know in the comments. That is a reference to an obscure YouTube channel that I happen to like. Leave a comment if you know what I'm talking about. But it was. And there are other times like the windshield washer line clips. I can't find those. The only way to buy them is in assembly with the engine insulation.
Oh,
that's like a $400 part from Honda.
Don't need it.
3D printed the freaking clips. Mind you, the first time I did it, I ran a zip tie and I did that. And I'm like, no, I want to do it right. Not because I should, but because I can. The zip tie worked just fine. But there are places in your lives where 3D printing can be hugely beneficial. You just have to unlock that potential. So that's why we want people to call us. We want you to email us. We have forms on our website you can fill out. We get in contact with you. A lot of times it's me. The same idiot you're listening to right now will be the one likely reaching out to you because I like to do a lot of the front-end customer work. It's fun for me to learn about people's history, why they're doing it. It's important. It's very important. So the benefits are there, and especially if you're a businessman, you are able to take those lead times and just kneecap them. It is incredible how fast 3D printing can be comparatively. Even if you can do milling in-house, you're days and days out where you can make a quick design, whip it up on the printer, and it's done tomorrow. That's the great benefit of it. And that's
no more having to wait for samples from China.
Oh God. And especially in today's climate of USA, right? We want it made in America. We all know machinists are not cheap.
Yeah.
We also all know that engineers are not cheap. But if you got someone there with the skills, knowledge, and ability to do 3D printing, dude, do it. If not, give us a call, 3dmusketeers.com, 813-803-4973, or info@3dmusketeers.com. And I swear, if any of you put an A in Musketeers, I'm going to be upset. Mind you, we also own 3dmusketeers.com with the A in Musketeers, so...
And it reroutes.
It reroutes directly to the correct website, but still, it still frustrates me. The candy is with an E. The movie is with an E. The book is with an E. There's never been a time where it was with an A.
Is this like a Mandela effect type thing?
I don't know.
Mandela?
Mandela. Oh. Yeah, Nelson Mandela, right? Yeah. I remember them. Yes.
Berenstain
Bears. Yeah. I was trying to think of I'm like, it's a bear thing. I forget what the bears are.
It's a bear thing. There's never been a Musketeers.
Musket, like a Civil War gun.
The weapon.
Yes.
When
we're doing these first few episodes as more of an educational series so that we get a lot of these same questions. We get questions about what is CAD, what about these different materials, and we can just say, hey, here's our podcast. Hey, here's a blog. Hey, here's a video. Watch at your convenience and let us know, because we're spending a lot of time going over the same stuff over and over and over again. And that kind of sucks. Kind
Yeah.
of really sucks.
Consider this
Actually,
podcast series like a long form FAQ, sort of.
at least for now. We're
Yeah.
gonna, once we get a lot of these FAQs taken care of, we're gonna transition more into, just what's going on in the industry, why we care about it, why we don't care about it. Talking about some products that we can talk about, having guests on here. I'm excited.
Mm-hmm.
We've already booked our first guest, so I'm really, really happy about that. But this is an ever evolving industry, and every single day something happens. Uh, Companies come out with different printers. Hacks are done for certain printers. People release models that change the way we look at calibration, change the way we look at certain pieces. I mean, I'm literally holding a part that's made of silicone that we did in the 3D printed injection mold, which we talked about and showed if you're watching us on YouTube on one of our first episodes about 3D printing versus injection molding. We're going to do little mini episodes about like what is 3D printing. We did one on what is CAD. Baby, don't hurt me, because it's just funny to me. But I think it's great because there's huge potential here for the younger generations to, get involved in this. It doesn't cost a lot to have a 3D printer at home, but what it can do for your child, or really for your significant other, that you're going to call it a gift for the child, but we both know the significant other is going to use it more. Maybe you're going to use it more and you're using the child as the excuse to buy it. Don't lie to yourselves or to your spouses. That's bad, kids. But this can foster imaginations that cardboard boxes could only dream of. It can foster careers. Something that you can get for less than $1,000 can foster a career. Think about
This
that.
is like the erector sets of the modern day, sort of.
It really is, but you make your own damn erector set.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a whole nother level of creativity to it.
I believe erector sets are the patent has expired, so I'm sure they're 3D printable.
Oh yeah, somebody's probably made all the models already.
I'm sorry, I did not sleep much last night. Oh, dude, the guy that makes the business card kits, the snap together kits, just put out one for the land speeder and TIE fighters.
Oh, I've seen those on Thingiverse, right?
I know you're a big Star Wars fan. I'm looking to see if Erector Set is on here. I should be going to prusaprinters.org instead of Thingiverse. Thingiverse is owned by Stratasys. Prusa Printers is owned by our buddy, Mr. Joseph Prusa. But yep, totally, it's all on there.
I knew
Every piece for an erector set, including the wrench.
Oh, what about wasn't a erector set? It was the other thing, the plastic like pipes with the little pucks that they went into.
An
You know what I'm
X?
talking about? Tinker Toys.
Oh, Tinker Toys.
Oh, I had a drum of those. They always came in that little cardboard tube.
Some stuff, nowhere near as much as
Erectors.
As erector sets. So that could be a God. I'm sorry.
It's either patent or also it's like people only want to replace things that have broken.
Right, and
those things lasted forever.
Oh, dude, they did. And erector sets did too. They were made out of stamped steel.
Look
right?
what you're doing to me.
Oh well, that at least we know you're not a psychopath, right? I saw that online. That a good way to tell.
Is that a really true way to tell? Wow,
it's an empathy thing.
Oh, the lack of empathy goes that deep that even yawning. Ew, it's freaky.
I cannot confirm that I saw it online randomly.
Yeah, but I'd believe it. That makes sense. Folks, verify the things you read on the internet. Always find a second source, preferably not from the same place. Don't do what I just did.
I'm Googling it right now, looking for give me a journal. Holy
Yeah.
crap, I found it.
Yes, if you can find it in a scientific journal at the very least. Don't just take your great aunt on Facebook's advice and run with it, because that's how we end up in the boring dystopia we live in.
I would normally include this in the description, but boy, that's going to throw off the algorithm. So I think I'm going to leave that one out. If you, it's on sciencedirect.com. It's got the entire link to it. I'm trying to see. So it was from Baylor University, the Department of Psychology and Neuroscience, and it was available online as of June 5th, 2015, and it was accepted into a journal May 19th of 2015. So this is actually published, peer-reviewed science, because remember, always trust but verify. Unless it's politics, then just straight verify. Don't trust anything that you see. God, I can't wait for the elections to be over.
You and me both,
dude, the amount of attack ads that we get are absolutely ridiculous. We are getting so far off topic, but that's okay. I say we use like the last 5 minutes to screw around.
It's all right. I've been getting so many calls that go straight to my spam thing.
Yep.
I don't know what update it was, but now Android has like an automatic like spam folder for texts and calls that it's like, this is fishy, which is really nice. And I've been getting so many from like 3 states ago, like, because I have my phone number still from Colorado, and it's like, I don't live there anymore, and I don't know anyone who would be calling me, so it's probably political, all political.
Oh, and it's worse as a business, right? Because we don't know who's calling. We don't know if maybe their number was wrongfully marked as spam. The amount of times companies have called me about my vehicle's extended warranty is pretty substantial. So it is, it's nuts to me.
The extended warranty.
Wow, my vehicle's old enough to vote. I'm like, yeah, I love to know about my vehicle's extended warranty because I got a lot of problems with it.
Oh, did you take up all their time?
Oh, God, yes. God, yes. The worst now is with this text messages. I'm getting a lot of spam text messages. Google has a text bomber. And it's on Google's development website. It was last updated in 2011. But it's called SMS Bomber. I'm looking at it right now, and I will not.
Is it like an SMS kind of like almost like a DDoS attack?
Basically, but Google made it, so I'm calling it okay. It'll just spam whatever number you put in it. Yeah. So remember, kids, don't be jerks. Only do it to spammers.
Right. They deserve it.
I can't confirm that it works with the latest version of Android. It works with Android 7 because previously I was on this. It's a China phone. It's a Lieco, a company that doesn't exist anymore, but was a daughter company of Vizio. Great phone. That was
Vizio made phones.
Well, they had a daughter company that made phones.
Huh.
But
I used to have a Vizio TV. Huh.
Vizio makes great TVs. I wholeheartedly recommend them.
They're good.
Yeah. Especially their new cinema versions. Boy, we are way off. We are way off topic at this point. Let's just call it here. I think the listeners have heard enough of us, or the watchers have heard. I've seen enough of us. If you guys want
the yawning.
Oh God, yeah. For those of you that don't know, a lot of times since I'm over in Florida and Tad is on the other side of the country, a lot of times I am working his schedule, not the other way around.
Unfortunately.
And that's okay.
Thank you for putting up with that.
If there's one thing that I could do right as a business owner, it's to work at the times that, the staff work at. Because why make you conform to my time? That's ridiculous. So it is very late for me right now. Anyways, we will see you guys later. This has been, I think, episode number 5.
I think so.
All about the benefits of 3D printing, and then a little bit of ranting with Grant and Tad. This has been Making Awesome. supported by 3D Musketeers. If you guys want to be a guest, if you want to learn more, if you have questions or concerns, you can reach us at 3dmpodcast.com, makingawesomepodcast.com, or directly at 3dmusketeers.com/podcast. We'll have all that information for you in the description. Please don't hesitate to reach out. We hope to hear from you all soon. Don't stop making awesome. Don't stop getting smarter every day. Keep pushing. Make sure to get out there and vote. And if you're listening after November, 4th, and you haven't voted, shame. Shame.
Do your civic duty. Come on.
And if you don't vote, I do not want you complaining on Facebook.
But you know they will.
Oh, yeah. Take care, guys.
Thanks for listening.